Holy shit.
Holy cannoli.
What was that?
We are live. Thanks to 10 Day Tony for playing Hurt. More on that later. To get us back to you live, our second morally abhorrent, because like fools, like imbeciles, we expected soccer to be normal at this Winter World Cup in Qatar. And there was about 60 seconds there, Witty, where Japan and Costa Rica were through on the group, and Spain and Germany were being sent home. Moriyasu, what a manager! I've been his biggest supporter, most ardent fan this entire tournament. What a starting 11 he chose. Japan, much like they did in their first match against Germany, shocked the world by coming back from 1-0 down to get all 3 points and finish atop the group. They'll take on Croatia in the knockout stages. Spain honestly looked shell-shocked by the end of that match, stunned, because credit to Spain, they went for it. Their place wasn't guaranteed in the next round. They were trying to beat Japan and look like a team that just gave it their best effort and got outclassed by Japan. It's hard to put into words what happened. Early on, it looked like Germany were flying. You got the early goal from Gnabry, and Germany looked certain to coast. And also, Morata puts one in the back of the net for Spain. And here we go. The inevitable is happening. Chalk across the way. Witty, then what happens?
Well, then what happened is what happened really for Japan in the Germany game, where they go into half. They brought on 2 of the players that we talked about in our last Morally Abhorrent, which I want to title the podcast version of this, Don't Listen to the Last One. We sound like boobs. So they bring on the 2 changes that we had talked about, which were Ritsu Doan, who came on as a sub and scored 2 minutes later. And they brought in Kaoru Mitoma, who provided the assist for the second goal to Ao Tanaka. And Japan go 2-1 ahead of Spain. And that puts them in but that puts Spain in a precarious position because they're relying on Costa Rica not winning the other game. But it's Costa Rica. They're not going to go in front of Spain, are they? Or of Germany, are they? And sure as shit, they did. They were 2-1 up for a hot second over Germany, and there was a moment where it was Costa Rica top, Japan. Well, actually, it would have been Japan top, Costa Rica second, and Spain and Germany, World Cup winners, recent World Cup winners, were going to be out of the tournament in the group stage. A complete flipping of how we thought this group was going to go, but Germany eventually found their way and knocked Costa Rica out, and now Spain are sort of comfortably into second place in this group, which actually sets up a decent bracket in the knockout round. But my God, it was insane. The idea that, first off, this group went off like that, but that Germany are out. And you can look back on how they played the second half, similar to how Spain played the second half against Japan, and just completely got caught in the counter punch. They can, in my view, have a complaint in how that second Japan goal went in. I'm looking at the replay again right now, and the ball looks like it crosses over the byline.
I'm telling you, that's a tricky thing about balls. You can't tell the tip. It's a spherical thing. I know, but let's all be adults here. It's a spherical thing, and it's just shading over that white line that keeps it in. The entirety of the ball has to move over that white line. And keep in mind, these are smart balls, right?
Yeah,
they have a chip in them to.
Do we know? Did they say in the broadcast whether or not there was they used the technology in the ball, or they used technology period, or they just sort of use that camera angle and sort of guess?
I think it's like the end zone in the NFL. If you have the technology for the line across, I don't think the technology ends from goalpost to goalpost. I mean, from the photos that I've seen, I guess it's all confirmation bias, but to me, it looks in. I understand that there are tricky lines from the right side of the stadium, and it can play tricks on you. But you have to understand that parts of the ball hang over the tip. Like it looks
for
off
me,
by an inch.
no, and that's why goal line technology is amazing, because there are times where you will look at a goal and be like, oh, that's definitely in. And Manchester City won a Premier League on that technology and our ability to see that. So for me,
what's a FIFA conspiracy here that FIFA wanted Japan to go
no.
to
It's not the conspiracy. It's just like, if they didn't confirm that with technology and they're going with the human eye, then I don't think that meets the clear and obvious threshold. Like, because even
the ruling on the field stands.
Yeah, like, just because, unless they have some definitive proof, and I am a complete believer in the technology, not because I'm sort of guaranteed that it will work, but it's more reliable than our judgment, in my opinion. So even if the offside thing, which there was one in the Croatia game earlier today that we didn't talk about, but there was one where it's like the shirt sleeve against the shirt sleeve, but they have this technology that they say, it has offside at 100%. I'm sort of like, all right, cool. Goal line technology, cool. You guys get that 99.9% of the time right. We remember the one. There was an Aston Villa game in Project Restart, which I inexplicably remember. But like, if it's technology based, I'll buy it. But if it's people in a room trying to guess if that ball went completely over the line, I don't see definitive proof of that.
I think I'd even trust people in a room with all the camera angles available to them. I mean, I can see. I wanted to see Germany and Spain through just because I wanted better matchups there, but I thought Japan was deserved of all 3 points. Watching
you do get to start your podcast about Japan now, where you rip the manager for 45 minutes.
But I mean, again, they bring on the changes that we were clamoring for. I shouldn't feel like I have a good read on the Japanese roster and what the moves are to be made. But I also want to give credit to the Ticos. Costa Rica.
Yeah.
The inspired performance today with nothing to. I understand. Look, they were through to the next round, and probably so for about 60 seconds. As improbable as a scenario as that might have seemed before, but you lose in a World Cup and suffer the indignity of a 7-0 defeat. You have every reason to pack it in, especially at those ages. And those players played very proud. I think they did their country very proud. They are not the embarrassment that things were shaping out to be at the start of this World Cup. They had a say in today, and they were supposed to be the flat track. They were the ones that embarrassed themselves in match week 1 and really didn't have themselves in a realistic conversation. And there they were. All they had to do was not concede, and they conceded right away. Big Match Kai was an impact sub, and you got to wonder why they weren't quicker to put him in. But ultimately, it's the Japanese performance that sees them through and Spain through. You mentioned in the most recent episode that we did that, again, we're telling you to not listen to because we sound like boobs. You mentioned that Spain was the best looking team in this tournament. They were your favorite. Do you care to reevaluate?
I mean, I probably honestly, I was driving home and I was thinking to myself, I mean, France are quite good. Did you have to be so hyperbolic? But yeah, I mean, Spain in that first half, sort of set out their stall in the way that they wanted to. They had a ton of the ball. They created a ton of chances, but ultimately they can look like the team that were, I thought, the most frustrating team at the Euros 15 months ago. Like, they were a team that in the Euros would dominate in exactly the same way and not score goals. And you can very easily say, well, it was Costa Rica. But Costa Rica have gone on and performed very well. Right? So They beat Japan. They gave Germany a game for 75 minutes. It's not like they were exactly the flat track that we think. As a matter of fact, everyone in this group has transitive wins over everyone else in this group. So I saw there's this funny tweet I'm looking at. It's just the flags. Costa Rica greater than Japan, greater than Spain, greater than Costa Rica, greater than Japan, greater than Germany, greater than like you sort of lay out the transitive properties of this group, and everyone has a transitive win over somebody else.
Time is a flat circle. Neuer had a mare today.
And Unai Simon did as well. He should have saved.
He was really bad.
The first Japanese goal for sure.
And I don't think I pressed you hard enough when you were talking to me about Spain and how much you favored them. A lot of questions about the goalkeeper position. entering this World Cup. I've spoken to plenty of Spanish supporters, and they didn't want De Gea near this roster, and I understand that. Kepa was in form for Chelsea. There are all sorts of questions surrounding the goalkeeper position, and I only have more questions now after this most recent performance. They're susceptible to that. And now, if you're watching El Chiringuito, you know what the spin is. Oh, this could be better for us. And actually, the winner of the group has to take on the most recent World Cup runners-up in Croatia, and we get Morocco. Careful with that. I'm telling you right now, Morocco's been the better team so far at this World Cup, and you're on the road when you're playing Morocco, Spain. That is a road game for you. And for the Japanese, I think that's an opponent that's perfectly suited for what it is that they do. And I think one of these blue bloods is going to get sniped here. I really do. If I had to guess, I'd say one of either Morocco and Japan go through based on recent form. They're going to be either way. Japan is going to be really hard to kill. It seems.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, it seems like they will not relish in this tournament the role of favorite, but their role as favorite is over. So they go into a game against Croatia as an underdog, and they can potentially put together a formula to win that game. I would also say, though, I guess the reason why that Spanish spin will hold some water, although I'm sure we know some Spain fans, they were silent when Costa Rica was knocking them out of the group for about 3 minutes. So they absolutely sweated today. However, not only do they avoid Croatia in the next round, I know that Morocco's a tough game, but they're also now out of the bracket where Brazil would be their quarterfinal. And so right now, if they were to progress into the quarterfinal, they would face the winner of the Portugal group, which I think is a much more favorable matchup than playing the winner of the Brazil group. So like there is that to account for as well.
Which until tomorrow, Brazil is my favorite to win this World Cup. Even with if we don't see Neymar don a canary yellow shirt throughout the remainder of this tournament, I still fancy Brazil's chances. They're just so loaded, and I love the way that they're playing now, and I cannot wait to watch them tomorrow. And if you, in talking about tomorrow, these games tomorrow seem like we can have the same sort of insanity going on today. You know what was trending on Twitter? What is happening in caps? What is happening?
What is happening?
I cannot believe it. There was a more than minute-long stretch in which Japan and Costa Rica were going through to the knockout rounds, and Spain and Germany were out.
We based our content plan around the strategy that this is the one ending. Like, these group endings are 6 for 6 on drama. There is not one group that has ended without an incredible amount of drama, the simultaneous kickoffs working as a device to instigate that drama. The least dramatic one was Australia knocking Denmark out of the World Cup, which was astounding. Like, that was the least dramatic one. The USA sweating it out with Wales, Senegal and Ecuador in a head-to-head for Group A. In Group C, we had the madness yesterday with Poland and Mexico potentially going out on FIFA Fair Play. Today, we talked.
I didn't think we could top yesterday, and we topped it.
How did
we top yesterday?
We topped it again. Costa Rica were through. There was a moment where they were through. They were knocking. And by the way, like, in some ways, these last 3 days, we've done sort of very lengthy post-mortems on teams that have gone out of the tournament. And I think the one for today is the Germans. 2 straight World Cups where they're out.
Look, we've been doing Morally Abhorrent long enough that we're reading each other's minds. Time for the German post-mortem. This is a different scenario than the previous post-mortems that we've done. The future is incredibly bright for Germany. This is a stunning result. The World Cup record since winning it has obviously left a lot to be desired, but they have a player in Musiala who was once again showed you why he is worthy of the Messi comparisons, because there's just a lot of similarities. He is so dangerous and difficult to tackle inside the box. The only thing that's missing for this kid is that end product. And even today, He showed you that he is threatening from those positions. In fact, I wish they would have given him more of a green light. I wish he were a little bit more selfish. Kai Havertz, we've talked about it some on this show, a player that flashes special quality, does some things really well, but doesn't do things exceptionally well to be worthy of the world-class label bestowed upon him by that transfer fee that Chelsea paid for. Transition, Kimmich, a good holding mid, but I'm not really sure what. Well, here, let me rephrase. They were hurt by injuries. If Timo Werner were available to them, I don't think that they find themselves out of the group stage. They probably have to make a change at goalkeeper. Neuer, we're lying to ourselves if we think that Neuer is the same player that he was prior to the injury. He's been having a pretty steady decline over these last few years, and that was the worst performance I've seen him have in that national team shirt. I am bullish on the Germans going forward. They made a managerial change. They may have to make another one here because that's a pretty unacceptable result. What is your takeaway from this German experience, Witty?
I don't want to overlearn the lesson. I'll be curious, sort of what the German reporters. There was a writer for the Athletic named Raphael Honigstein who wrote a book called Das Reboot about the German national team going from their dominance in the 80s and the 90s, having a bit of a rough 2000s period before the 06 World Cup that they hosted, and they brought through a bunch of new players, and they had completely reformed the way that they developed players at academy level, and they kind of got away from a negative way to view the game, and instead they were kind of the most proactive big team, and they're a country that's known for a style of play. You watch a Bundesliga game, and you know exactly where that game is being played. It's a lot of pressing. It's a lot of Ralf Rangnick's principles of 4-2-2-2 and pressing and going forward and through balls and direct, and we know exactly how they want to be. And yet, for whatever reason, the more that it's sort of gone in that direction, the further away they've gotten, I think, from competing at the highest levels at men's national team level. Yeah. And to me, what it's created is...
They did make the final in 2002, but that was with a long-in-the-tooth team, and no one expected anything of them when they hosted the World Cup in 2006, and led by guys like Philipp Lahm. They benched Oliver Kahn, which I remember was this huge controversy. Mm-hmm. They had steady veterans over there, like Ballack and Klose, but they had younger guys. But they had younger guys coming along that were essential to their inevitable World Cup win later on. They had an exceptional reboot because 2006 was so unexpected.
Yeah, and then 2014 happens. They win the thing, and you see in that team so many players that would you would think that they would kick on and have these incredible careers, but a lot of them fell off. It was sort of like, this is the defining achievement of my life. I'm good. I think of Mario Götze in particular as the player that sort of most symbolizes that, or symbolizes that. I mean, we can go, through that 2014 World Cup winning team, and, there's not a ton of those guys left. Neuer is kind of the only one. Yeah, right. Schürrle, yeah, Andre Schürrle. Yeah, for sure.
He checked out after that.
Yeah, so here's the team from that day. It was Neuer in goal, Lahm, Boateng, Hummels, and Hovedes, Kramer, Schweinsteiger, Muller, Kroos, Ozil, and Miroslav Klose, who honestly, Klose was going to be the point that I was going to make, which is even Werner, who's been a good Bundesliga player, didn't go well for him at Chelsea. He's had his problems with finishing for Germany too. He's not the clinical, robotic number 9 who buries every chance like Miroslav Klose was at the World Cup. It was death, taxes, and Miroslav Klose at the World Cup. That dude was automatic when it came to international tournaments. And honestly, when I looked at this team, we talked earlier, they're missing a right back for sure. They're missing, I think, a really high quality left back. David Rahm is a decent player. Got to step up in the Bundesliga. That really came from playing in the national team. Neuer today, as you mentioned, had a shocker. Honestly, we talked earlier about international retirements for Belgium. Might be time for Manuel Neuer. He's had a great career. He's 36. It's time for a new keeper. And they've had keepers waiting in the wings, but they stick with Manuel Neuer. That's what they do. So I still think, though, in that level behind the striker, in midfield, and at center back, they're pretty good. But at fullback area and up top, and honestly, you can't really have too much of a go at them for today. They created a bunch of chances. Neuer made some mistakes, and honestly, the ones that they left on the table hit the post. Keylor Navas made some ridiculous saves on some of
that
those
was cool to see.
chances.
It was cool to see.
But like maybe they could have gotten to the 7, but ultimately it's not about the 7 today. It's about the 2 that they gave away in the game against Japan. And honestly, other than that, I don't think their World Cup was atrocious, but like that's the world. That's what happens when this comes down to 3 games. Sometimes a bad 45 minutes means you're out.
They went 1 down in a match against Spain that was of some significance, and I know that the result that Costa Rica had over Japan earlier that morning might have changed the dynamic of that, but I'm going to say it was still a bad World Cup, and accuse me of playing the result. They didn't make it out of the group stages. They have to solve what Chelsea is struggling to solve with Kai Havertz is where do you play this guy? They got to develop a better go-to striking option. It would have been Timo Werner. For all the holes in his game, he would have been the best available option up top. I would say as long as you've got Musiala, you're going to be relevant in these international competitions. So because that if he's 19 years old,
right,
he's flashing that at 19. He was.
Can you put the futures bet? Can you put the futures bet for them in the Euros in 2024? Because with 18 months, to progress, that guy's going to be awesome.
Are they hosting the next Euros?
I don't know. I'm gonna look up where the next Euros are.
Yeah,
they are. They are. Yeah, you're right. They're hosting the next Euros.
It's everybody's favorite bet. Hold your money for 2 years, and tie it up in the future. But right now, this is where the bargain price is. I'm just such a fan of Musiala. I thought he was bossing that game, and at times he was easily the best player on there. Gnabry's been a decent revelation. He's got a couple of years ahead of him too. He'll be a part of that team. Timo's young. Kai is super young. You have a really good attacking core. You need to solve the fullback question. They'll be back. Honestly, it's just a harsh reality. They learned it firsthand. They're not as good as Japan right now. Japan is a good team. If I'm looking at the team sheets for Croatia and Japan, I kind of favor Japan from an overall talent perspective.
The best 11 that you like, not the one that Moriyasu picks every game.
Precisely. I was going to get to that point.
The second half subs Japan is one of the best teams of the World Cup.
These are good players, man.
Yeah.
Doan is friggin' dynamite. I really like the players. For me, it all comes down to the puzzling manager. I don't understand him. Even in this victory, Fox was trying to give him credit, and I think that's the thing where you struggle to explain what you just saw, so you just give credit. I actually think Moriyasu's standing in the way of Japan. That being said, in the knockout round, you have really delicious storylines, not just because you have blue bloods versus underdogs. And that Spain-Morocco, you have geopolitical implications. Morocco was colonized by Spain for about 75 years. A lot of Spanish influence, obviously the famous movie Casablanca. A lot of Spanish influence when it comes to Morocco. So that's a rivalry game, certainly. And Morocco have taken over these stadiums and made it a home-like atmosphere. Their XG, expected goals, would suggest that maybe they're not as good as the final scores reflect. That being said, Hakimi, Ziyech, home crowd, a team that's on good form, a team that believes, a team that is representing the continent of Africa, poised to make a deep run. Morocco's had some good teams in World Cup competitions past. This is a country with a pretty decent soccer history. I'd be worried. I'd be worried if I were Croatia. It didn't happen today, but it seemed like they were hanging on for dear life. And I'd be worried if I were Spain. If I'm just playing the math, there's value in taking both dogs and seeing if one of them can bring it home and you're up on units.
I agree. I think honestly, that might be the play for the rest of the tournament. I think at this point it's sort of fade logic is my way that I'm sort of approaching this. My friends keep asking me for bets. I'm a disaster because I trusted Germany that the first game was a fluke. And that, I mean, again, going by the XG, they were so far better than Japan, and then had 10 bad minutes, and all of a sudden they were in a bad position. I was like, let's calm down and be sort of sane about Germany. They're playing pretty well, and that like you can't go by that stuff. And honestly, you said earlier, oh, pardon me for playing the result. The results are all we have at this World Cup. At this point, there is no point in talking about process. Process is utterly irrelevant. It's what are the results that you achieved. But even like, for example, if you try and use, okay, so we saw Costa Rica get destroyed by Spain. And then they then went on to beat Japan and give Germany a game. So like it's just hard to like definitively say, well, I know that France are way better than whoever they're playing. They're playing Poland the next round. I guess that might be the one underdog that I avoid. But like otherwise, like I don't know. Let's get crazy. Morocco against Spain? Why not? Even Australia against Argentina. Like I don't think this is going to be a tournament of scratch. Like we just saw Germany go out. Like why would we assume scratch?
The results have been just and fair, I think, throughout this World Cup. I think Japan deserved to come through the group more than Germany did. There's only been one time, and that's with Ecuador, that I felt like that seems a little harsh. I wish that team would have made it through. But I'm glad we scrambled. Tony, put some ice on the thing. I'm happy we got to give you this bonus Morally Abhorrent World Cup 2022. We'll be back with you, and we've learned our lesson. No in between the matches. We're going to be after the late matches tomorrow, and we'll give you a proper preview for Netherlands, USA. Pretty massive match in this nation's history. So stick with us. Plenty of stuff for your soccer perusal. God bless football, Cooligans, Ash and Allie, football with Grant Wall. Quickly, Witty, because I got like 5% on my battery. Tell the people what they can expect from football with Grant Wall, fresh off your CNN appearance.
Yeah, we're gonna obviously preview the U.S. game. Grant's been covering all the major goings on. We'll be talking about a lot of the same games we'll be talking about here and get Grant's perspective from the ground in Doha. So lots to come on an episode that'll probably be dropping later tonight.
All right, and Thursday Thunder for the gamblers out there. We have Bills money line, Josh Allen rushing yards over, and we're pairing that with Serbia not to lose tomorrow. So lots of stuff to root on. Till we speak again, that's Chris Wittyngham. I'm Mike Ryan. Let's go,
Go
States!
States!